Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today at our Technical Analysis 101 webinar. My name's Franco. I'm with Jared.
Yep. Hi.
All right, so let's just get started.
Yeah, right away na.
All right, so our webinar will be on technical analysis, mastering the market through the charts. And for everyone watching, please stay until the very end for a chance to win our exclusive Dragonfly tote bag and cap. So here's the outline for our webinar part one and part two.
Yep. So first in part one, we'll look at the introduction to technical analysis. So you're looking at what technical analysis is, how do you interpret the candlesticks, what are the trends, then when do you actually buy and sell, then what are some of the common chart patterns.
Yeah, we've included some of our favorite chart patterns
Yes.
that have been very helpful to us. Yeah.
Yep. Part two will be how to execute your trades naman. So that's gonna be from watch listing to making your trade plan. So that's where's your entry, where's your stop loss, where's your target. Then some of our strategies. How do you
Very own strategy for the strategic growth portfolio. All right, so let's start. Jared, take it away.
Okay, so when you want to get into trading, who among you are like this? You have the following questions, right? You don't want to lose big, right? Then another common one is, what price should I buy, di ba? Parang, okay, I know na maganda tong stock na to. Anong presyo, di ba? 3 pesos, 5 pesos, parang should I wait for it to go up? Should I wait for it na bumaba ng konti, right? Then once you're earning na, right? When do you sell, right? Parang beta mo na ba? Or down ka ng 10%, cut loss na ba, right? Then some of you parang you might be hesitant na mag-start ng trading, right? Because parang hindi ako magaling sa numbers eh. Parang for the nerds lang daw yun, right? Then another one naman pwede is, what stocks do I buy, diba? There's like 280 stocks in the PSE. How do I determine one out of 280, diba? Parang ang hirap. Then others naman, they're like complicated naman eh, diba? Parang yung charts, diba? Parang ang daming guhit, lines, and all that. Or do you kapitbahay mo, uy, buy plus kasi yun, no? Parang do you just buy what's on? So, all of these are valid, and really the answer to this is learning about technical analysis, right? So next slide. So let's start with that. What is technical analysis muna? So this is the study of using historical price movements to predict future price movements. So simply, parang ganito. So let's say you're going to the marketplace, di ba? Parang you want to buy fruits, di ba? Kasi fruits healthy yun, di ba? So let's say,
Frutas.
yes, you want to buy apples, di ba? Mansanas, di ba? So let's say today is Thursday, and then you're going to the market Friday, which is the next day. So the price of apples nung Monday was 5 pesos. Tuesday, 5 pesos. Wednesday, 5 pesos. Thursday, 5 pesos. Franco, on Friday, what's the price of apples?
Based on historical trend, 5 pesos.
Yeah, because parang from Monday to Thursday, medyo flat yung price, di ba? So parang you can assume na based on that, it will follow the same pattern na it's 5 pesos rin. How about kung ganito? Monday, it's 5 pesos. Tuesday, 4 pesos. Wednesday, 3 pesos. Thursday, 2 pesos. Friday, what do you think the price of apples will be?
It's gotta be 1 peso, right?
Yeah, because parang based on the trend, di ba? Parang it's
It's on a downtrend, right?
Yeah. It's getting cheaper by 1 peso each day. So parang you assume na by Friday, -1, di ba? Then, let's say, ganito naman. Monday, 5 pesos. Tuesday, 6 pesos. Wednesday, 7 pesos. Thursday, 8 pesos. Friday, how much
9
kaya?
pesos.
9, di ba? Kasi parang umaakyat siya ng 1 peso each day. So basically, that's technical analysis, di ba? Parang based on historical data, you can sort of guess, di ba? Make an educated guess what the price will be the next day or for the future, right? So that's basically what technical analysis is. So next slide. So let's look at some of the assumptions muna ng technical analysis. So like a while ago, right? History may not repeat itself, but it often rhymes. So what does this mean? So parang like kanina, right? The price of apples is going up by 1 peso each day. It doesn't mean naman na by Friday, it's gonna go up by 1 peso. But often from based on historical, parang you can sort of understand the pattern. So you can understand na generally, paakyat yung presyo, it's in an uptrend. It may not go up by 1 peso, but you can expect na paakyat yung presyo because based on historicals, it's going up. Same same case rin for the downtrend, right? If you see na apples are going down 1 peso each day, baka next day it may not necessarily go down by 1 peso, pero generally makikita mo na pabagsak yung presyo, right? So basically that's what technical analysis relies on. The assumption na history may not always repeat itself, but it often rhymes. Next. Next is the stock market is a discounting machine. So what does this mean? So the fund right when you look at the stock, that's a business, right? It has fundamentals, it has earnings, it gives out dividends. In technical analysis, you have to assume na all those, yung mga good news, mga bad news, yung mga earnings growth, it's all reflected in the stock price. So if maganda yung financials, it will be reflected in the stock price. If the company is losing money, it will reflect in the stock price going down. So that's what you have to assume, na the fundamentals are reflected in the chart. So that's what technical analysis relies on. So with those two assumptions, let's now talk about the finer details ng technical analysis. So first, technical analysis looks at the stock charts. So what's in a stock chart? So here in your, what's this, x-axis, right? X. In the x-axis, you have time. In the y-axis, that's your price. So price and time, right? So there. So basically, over time, the price can go up or down, right? So that's what the stock chart looks at. Next. But in a stock chart, obviously, we use a more sophisticated chart, right? You call this a candlestick chart. So we'll get into more detail. How do you interpret each of these candles? Pero it's sort of like the line chart, pero it has more information. So next. So let's understand muna ano yung candlestick. So the candlestick basically shows the stock price. Pero of course, stock price when, right? So there's a lot of different time frames, right? Because the stock price, it goes up and down, like can go up and down like every minute, every second, whether in every hour, every day, every week, every year. So that's why you need a candlestick, because you need to know what specific time the candle refers to. And here we usually look at the daily time frame, which is a daily candlestick. So basically, one candle represents one trading day. So sa PSE, one trading day starts 9:30 a.m. and ends 3 p.m., diba? So open, so let's look at the bullish candlestick. So open. So if the stock opens 9:30, diba? The market opens at 9:30. Let's say the stock opens 10 pesos, right? So that's the open. That's what you see here, the open. Then during the day, does the stock price stay at 10 pesos? No, di ba? Parang umakyat siya, bumabagsak. So within the day, it can go to 11 pesos. Then it can even drop as low as 9 pesos or 8 pesos, right? So that's what the wicks show. Yun high and low, yan yung parang yung stick, di ba? You call that the candle wick, right? So it shows how high the stock went, how low the stock went during the day. Then of course, the stock will close, di ba? So that's what the close means, right? So if it's a green candle, it means na the close is higher than the open. That means during the day, the stock went up compared to the previous day, right? If the body is red, it means na the close is lower than the open. That means the stock price fell during the day. So there. Next. Let's talk naman about the three types of trends, right? So I sort of discussed it na earlier sa examples sa apples, di ba? But let's look at it in more detail. So first is uptrend, which is your friend, di ba? Kaibigan mo siya. So why is it your friend? Because this is where everyone is happy, right? So uptrend is when stock prices are generally going up, di ba? So kikita ka ba or not, right? Of course, yes, because the stock prices generally tumataas, right?
Yeah, like for this example, ICT has gone up 8,000% from 2003.
Yeah, happy ka ba, right?
Yeah.
If you had that, right? So yes, so uptrend is your friend. So yung technical definition naman ng uptrend. So generally, di ba, you can say na basta pakit yung presyo. But if you want to look at yung textbook definition, an uptrend is defined as you have a low, then you have a high, tapos you have a higher low and a higher high. What do I mean by that? So the low is higher than the previous low, right? Then the high dapat higher than the previous high. So para siyang wave up, parang zigzag na pataas, right? So that's an uptrend. Basta there's a higher high and higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low. That's an uptrend. And remember, the trend is your friend because that's where you can make money because the stock price is going up. So next is downtrend naman. So yung downtrend, kaaway mo, di ba? You don't like a downtrend. So downtrend is when stock prices are generally going down. So in textbook definition naman nito is you have a high, you have a low, then you have a lower high and lower low. So lower high, then lower low. Yeah, lower high, lower low. So basically, when the stock tries to go up, hindi niya nabibeat yung previous high niya. Kasi there's a lot of selling pressure, right? So that causes it to keep going lower and start the downtrend. So this one, you don't want to get involved with because masakit to, right? You don't want to see your stock go down, right? So there, next. So next is sideways. Sideways naman is someone to watch out for. So parang it's neither good, neither bad, pero something na you should watch rin, right? So sideways is kapag yung lows and yung highs generally equal lang, right? So the highs equal, generally equal, the lows generally equal. So parang zigzag lang siya, parang flat. Up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. So that's sideways. Parang the stock is not going anywhere. Parang up, down, then yeah, going nowhere. It's not going up, not going down. It's just flat. That's a sideways. So now that you have an idea of an uptrend, di ba? Yung tumataas yung presyo. Yun sideways kapag medyo flat. Then downtrend kapag bumabagsak naman yung presyo, right? Next, we should know when should you buy and when should you sell. So next. So that's where support and resistance comes in. So this is a very important concept na you really have to understand so that you know the psychology going on in the market, right? So who here likes Pokemon? Do you like Pokemon, Franco?
Yeah, I grew up playing Pokemon.
Yeah, parang yan yun. That was the in thing during our time, di ba?
And now it's popular again. How
Yeah,
many people are flipping cards?
dati sa Game Boy pa tayo, di ba?
Yeah.
Naman, Pokemon Leaf Green, Fire Red. Ganun.
Now there are also new games like Pokemon Go and
Yeah,
Pokemon TCG.
yeah. So, did you know that the rarest Pokemon card in the universe is Pokédex number, Charizard's number 3, right? Yeah.
One is Bulbasaur.
Oh, I don't know, whatever. But Charizard is the rarest one. It's more,
There's a specific card on the screen right
yeah,
now.
it's more rare than Pikachu,
Yeah.
right? And I think Logan Paul got this, right?
Yeah.
Parang nakasabit when he went to WrestleMania, right? But anyways, right? So let's talk about the Charizard card. So the Charizard card, they have a lot of collectors, right? Pokemon collectors, card collectors. So this is a very rare card and it has a lot of value. But of course, when you're a collector, you want to buy the Charizard card at the right price, right? So if it's too expensive, you won't buy it, diba? Kasi too much, right? But if it's at the right price and you have the money, right, you will want to buy it. Okay, so let's say, give me a price, Franco, for the Charizard card.
6 pesos.
Grabe, but so let's say 6 pesos is for the collector, mura siya. At 6 pesos, you're willing to buy it. Right? So at 6 pesos, you'll say na, uy, naka-sale, mura. So let's buy. So that's basically the support. So support is basically a price level, price level na two buyers, they think na, uy, mura yan, let's buy. So once the stock price hits the support level, buyers think na mura na siya, at the price will go up because there's a lot of demand, right? A lot of people will scoop up the shares, right? They'll scoop up the Pokemon card kasi sobrang mura na in their opinion, in their view. So that is support. Next naman is resistance. So let's say, give me a price na medyo mahal for the Charizard card, Franco.
7.5. I'm just basing it off the chart, so it's easier to
7.5.
follow.
Okay, yeah. So 7.5. So for the Pokemon collector, kapag 7.5 pesos in card, medyo mahal na siya, right? So if it's at that level, nah, you wouldn't want it anymore. Or in fact nga if you bought the Charizard card at 6 pesos, tapos nag 7.5, baka i-flip mo na di ba? Parang, uy, medyo mahal. Then let's say I have two of them already. I only need one. What would you do? You'll sell it na kasi medyo mahal na eh. So that is what you call the resistance. It's the price level where people or investors think that the stock is a bit too expensive na. So they would sell. So there's a lot of selling pressure at that level, right? So how do you determine support and resistance levels? So support, you usually are able to define it as a support level if the price tested it multiple times na. So here, the support, you can see na price has revisited that level multiple times. Same rin sa resistance, right? So resistance is when the stock price has tested it multiple times and the stock price fell down kasi madaming supply. There's a lot of sellers at that level. That's why the stock prices fall once they hit that certain resistance level. So basically, that is support and resistance. Basically, support kapag mura yung Charizard card. Resistance kapag mahal ang Charizard card, right? So, Franco, if you were to buy either at support or resistance, where will you buy?
Obviously support, right? Because that's where the price is cheap.
Yeah, right? So you wouldn't want to buy at resistance kasi mahal, right? Unless you have so much money, right? And parang wala ka nang pake, right? But of course, if you're a rational investor, right, you'll buy kapag mura. So you should be buying at support, right?
You basically want to create a low risk entry point, right? So support would probably be the best place to do that.
Yep. So next. Now the question is, will support and resistance always hold? So do you think that the stock price will always stay sideways forever?
No.
No, right? Because boring naman, right? Stock prices, they're just going up and down, right? Of course, you want the stock price to go high and higher, diba? You want higher and higher, right? So the answer is no. So what happens if this doesn't happen? You have what you call a breakout. So this is when, for example, the Charizard card, 7.5, di ba? Medyo mahal. What if I told you na there were only 100 of those cards in existence? And you never knew until now. You only knew na, wow, only 100 of those Charizard cards are in the supply. What would you do? Right? You would think na the 7.5, mura pa pala yun, right? That's still a steal because what could it be worth? 10, 20, right? It's worth much more than what you thought was expensive before.
Yeah, and then the traders will come in and bid up the price
Yeah.
to whatever fair value they think it will cost.
Yep. So if you have new information na it's worth 10 pesos, you'll just buy it above 7.5 na. Because the whole narrative changed, right? You know more information na mura pa pala yun 7.5. So basically, if there's more demand that exceeds that supply area, it will be a breakout. And usually, when there's a breakout, that's when a new uptrend starts. Why? Because there's a lot of pent-up demand. And basically, a lot of people think na mura pa pala yun 7.5. So if mura pa pala yun, right? Let's just push it up to 10 pesos because that's what it's really worth. So that's where the uptrend starts.
Yeah, you can go back to before it was trading at 4 pesos, right?
Yeah.
You'll see this consolidation, and then when they change the business and the value of the company drastically changed to the upside, that's when it broke out and started to trend higher to what it's trading at today at around 30 something pesos.
Yep. So actually, dati that was still LR, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't plus yet.
It was like a dead stock at the time before, and then
they changed the company name, the ticker,
business model. Yeah.
Lumipad na, right? So next. So let's flip it around naman. Let's say 6 pesos, right? Let's say the Charizard card. What if you found out that they're fake? It's fake, right? Let's say, kala mo that's one of the 100 only copies. What if you found out na galing, it's a fake. Galing 168 or something. Right?
Okay.
Fake siya. And it's worthless. You thought it was 6 pesos, yun pala 0. Or 1 peso lang pala. What will happen? You'll think na, at 6 pesos, this is still expensive, diba? Na-scam ka. So, the price will go down. Why? Because mahal pa pala eh. So you just do everything you can to get rid of it. Kahit babaan mo yung presyo, you don't care because it's worth nothing, di ba? Might as well get out at like 5 or 4 rather than accept it at 1, right? So that's what you call a breakdown. Kapag there's no more demand at the support level. And basically what you thought was cheap, right, is still expensive. That's why the stock price will transition into a downtrend. So once it breaks down, usually you'll have a lower high and lower low na, and that's your downtrend. Next. So support and resistance, it's not just in a sideways, diba? Kanina it was on a sideways, in up and down. But support and resistance also happens during an uptrend. Pero the thing is, once the stock breaks out of resistance, once the price goes back to that level, usually it acts as support na. Why? So let's say 5, diba? You thought 5, it broke out, it went to 6, right? If it goes to 6, then it goes back to 5, parang you'll be like, uy, dati I was trying to catch it at 5, but I couldn't, it went to 6. Ngayon na bumalik sa 5, uy, mura ulit, right? Parang that significant level will act as a support because traders or investors remember na, uy, dati naiwanan ako there once it broke out. And once it's back there, mura ulit, right? So that's why it's usually supported, right? So once it breaks out, the previous support turns into resistance, right? So here you can see it's a Wilcon, right? In this example, after mag-breakout, once bumalik sa presyo, support. Breakout, once bumalik, support. So that's really how it works. Next. So next we have flip naman. what if it's in a downtrend? There's still support and resistance. So, kapag nag-break down from support and then bumalik back to that level, usually it acts as resistance. So why? Let's say 6 pesos, the fake Charizard card. Let's say 5 pesos. It's worth 1 peso. Pero for some reason, bumalik sa 6 pesos. What will you think? Uy, it went down to 1 peso. Ngayon, bumalik sa 6. This is my chance to get, right? To get out na tabla pa ako, right? So, with that mindset, that's why once bumalik sa support, after breaking down, it acts as resistance na. So here you can see it naman sa Nickel Asia. Next. So the key point here is you want to find stocks at key levels, right? So where should you buy it? Should buy stocks at support. Or if there's a catalyst, right? Or you know na maganda yung earnings or some sort of driver, you can buy stocks as they break out of resistance. Pero it's really better kapag nasa uptrend na. Because it's easier to make money when the trend is your friend, right? So, where should you enter the stock? When? Kapag nag-bounce na from support or it's about to break out from resistance. So, dalawa lang yan. Buy on support, buy on breakout, preferably on uptrends. So, there.
All right, now let's move on to drawing support and resistance. So Jared already talked about, basically gave you guys an idea of what, support and resistance is. But now I'll be sharing with you exactly what you need to know or what you need to identify in order to properly identify the support and resistance levels, because sometimes it's not only just about connecting as many points as possible. Some of these levels have significance, while others may have less or weaker significance than some certain level. So as mentioned earlier, think of support as a floor where buyers step in and prevent the price from falling further, while resistance, on the other hand, is like a ceiling that sellers will take profit and stop prices from going higher. So in order to find these levels, there are four ways to do this. One is to analyze historical price action. So that means review past price movements to spot levels where the stock consistently reversed or consolidated, and ask yourself, where did this stock previously change direction? So where did it reverse, right? So it may have hit a certain like 5 pesos, and then historically it has always bounced from 5 to 6. So that's one level, one way of identifying a good support level. And in relation to that, it's also to prioritize that levels with multiple tests. So that means focus on levels that have been tested several times. The more times a support level has been tested or resistance level, the more significant it becomes, signaling a stronger potential for a reversal. So if it keeps hitting a certain level, like for example, it keeps hitting 10 pesos without breaking out above 10, then most likely you will see that repeat until a significant volume comes in and breaks that resistance level. And another method is to identify key pivot points where the stock has changed direction with strong momentum. And the last one is to account for psychological levels. So this helps a lot also when a stock has reached all-time highs. Because once a stock has reached an all-time high, there are no longer historical price action that will show you that price has met resistance at this level or hit support at this level. So you can round off numbers. So for example, 10 pesos, 5 pesos, 15, 20, 25. So these are psychological barriers that traders have, making it significant levels of support and resistance, because a lot of the market movement is driven by market sentiment and trader psychology. So also, I'm sure you've noticed earlier that the resistance and support levels Jared showed aren't necessarily just lines, right? They are more of zones. So it's better to treat these support and resistance levels as zones rather than price points, because the price will not always exactly hit that level of support. It can hit support within a range between, for example, 5 to 550 or 10 to 11 pesos. So based on the chart, it can be a narrow support resistance zone or a wide support and resistance zone. So let's move on to some examples. So here is Meralco. So Meralco, before today, this was a chart a few days ago, was actually consolidating within a certain range. So for example, we have a pivot point here, one here, and another here. So this one would be a good level to draw support, like that. And then for resistance, well, it's also at the 500 peso psychological level, and you see it failed to break out not once, not twice, not three times, but four times. So you can confidently draw a resistance level here. So what normally happens is, without any significant catalyst or positive sentiment for the stock to go higher, it will tend to just trade sideways. It will just bump here and continue until a certain catalyst will push the stock higher. So maybe, for example, they renewed their license for their franchise for another 50 years, right? So obviously that's one catalyst, but yeah. And so one way to trade this is to simply buy the support level here and then sell it here. That's for short-term profit. The next example here is macro Asia. So in this example, I will show you that sometimes a support level becomes a resistance level. So for example, we have Mac here who has tested support at this level here. So you see it bounced off of this point and this point again, but eventually it broke down, right? So here you see that now it's acting as a resistance level. And so with that, you can continue to draw your resistance level at the 6 peso level, and notice that price will continue to retest that level and attempt to break out, but without any significant catalyst or anything pushing it higher. The sellers will push Mac back down to support, which we can draw at this level around 5 pesos. So next is drawing channels. So it's the same concept, but it adds more structure because so going back to what Jared said, in uptrend you have higher lows and higher highs, right? So in an uptrend, when you draw a trend line, you want to connect the higher lows, the support, and then draw a parallel line connecting the higher highs, which act as resistance. So now, the opposite of that is a downtrend. So it's the same concept, but the opposite. So since it's going down, you want to connect a trend line connecting the lower highs, which act as resistance, and a parallel line connecting the lower lows, which will act as support. So if the price respects the channel, you can trade within it by buying near support and selling near resistance, which is actually called a swing trading. It's a type of trading strategy that has the trader buy at a swing low and sell at a swing high. And I'll show you an example of that shortly. But sometimes the channel will not always hold. For example, if it's an uptrend, it can break below the channel and start a downtrend. But at the same time, if there's really strong momentum pushing the stock, it can even break above the upper channel, the upper trend line of the channel, and continue to rise. And that's something we call something parabolic, because it just keeps rising in a straight line. So here's an example of an upward channel. It's A-REIT. So here we have, for example, a low here, a high. And broke down, and you see it broke down here, the trend line, and started to continuing new up channel. So I think we're having some technical difficulties. All right. We will just redo everything in case I got cut off at the start. Okay, so now here's an example of a REIT. So I'll be drawing an example of an upward trend channel. So for example, here we have a low here, a high, and then a higher low, and then a higher high. So what we can do is we can draw a trend line here and here. So this one is an example of an upward channel. And then you can see that it did break down of this channel, but at the same time, it did not create a lower low. So there are some nuances when it comes to drawing trend channels. It's not always perfect in theory, right? Because in theory, it's just higher highs, higher lows. But when you start applying this in real life, you'll see there's certain moments where it can break the channel, but it not necessarily start a lower a downward trend channel. Sometimes it can consolidate here as well before breaking out, and then it can also restart a new channel, which we can draw like this. So here we see the one high here, another higher high here and we have a low. Yeah. So swing trading would basically mean buying the stock at this point, selling it here, buying here, and selling here. And then oftentimes you can find the stock continue to go up higher and higher past the trend line or down here below the trend line. So those are good indication that the trend will likely continue or reverse. Obviously, when you're trading a upward trend channel, you don't want to see the channel break down because that means the uptrend is over and it's time to hands off because it's harder to trade make a profit in a downward channel, which is the next example. Here we have SM Prime Holdings or SMPH. So same concept. We have a high here, a low, a lower high, a lower low, lower high, lower low, and then simply connect the sorry, let me fix that. Connect those pivot points to each other, and there you go. You have a downward trend channel. And if you really are confident in your trading strategy and you are you have your trading plan, you can manage your risk properly, you can actually, in fact, trade a downward trend channel this wide. It's harder to trade it when it's a narrow because it's unlike you have a less probability of turning a bigger profit if the downward trend channel is narrower than it's wide, because if it's wider you have a better chance of making a much more significant profit. So for example, buying here, sell here, because for example, from 28, you can sell it at 32, which is a decent profit for a swing trader. You can do it here again and here. But obviously, it's hard to tell exactly that the stock has bottomed out. Because, for example, in hindsight, if we cut this off here, obviously it's hard to tell whether or not this will actually rally to 33 or 34 pesos, right? It's easier said in hindsight. So that's one of the risks that a trader must manage when trying to trade a downward trend channel. So, and there you go. That's how you draw basic support and resistance levels, and turning those support and resistance levels into an upward channel or a downtrend channel. Now we move on to some of the most common chart patterns that we see in the market, and that can help you actually gauge where the market might trend and whether or not you should be buying a breakout or taking or cutting your loss. So the first two examples, what we call an ascending and descending triangle. So basically, an ascending triangle means that one, we have a horizontal line here, and then we see price rising with a higher low right there. So we see price somewhat tightening towards the upside. So that's what makes a ascending triangle, and the descending triangle is the opposite of that. We see lower highs here and here and here, and a support of a horizontal support line. So here, if you see this, it's most likely that the stock is always being met with selling pressure when it attempts to reverse. So that's why we are able to draw a downward trend line, and eventually, as the stock constricts towards the downside, it will eventually break the support level, and start to trend lower. So the ascending triangle is a bullish pattern, descending triangle is a bearish pattern. Next is the cup and handle. This is probably my most favorite chart pattern. It's something I've executed many times, both here in the US So it's self-explanatory. So for a cup and handle to form, you must identify a chart that has shown you a cup, right? And then it will consolidate into a handle. But sometimes the handle is not like this. The handle can go down like this. And then key the key the key tip here is to buy at the support. Now, most textbooks or most articles will tell you to buy a breakout, right? But that's when it's harder to manage risk at that point. So what I like to do is to buy at the support levels when it's forming. So for example, I would buy at this level at 38, knowing that there's a high potential that this cup and handle will validate itself. So this is an example of CNPF. Now it's I think it retested.
Yeah, actually, this trade, CNPF,
Was one of our trades for the
yeah,
strategic.
it was where we got shaken out. Right? No,
We sold because
even,
of
right?
the
Yeah.
market condition. When Trump won, yeah.
Because we bought at the top of the base rate.
That's why it would be better to buy at support. So
Yeah,
our actual trade was here. We bought this here.
at 40.
Yeah, break of this. We wrote it up here, but we ended up selling somewhere in this red
Yeah,
candle
break
because
even.
we needed to manage risk for the
Yeah.
upcoming elections, and because the PSEI was not holding.
Yeah, tinabla namin.
Yeah, basically that.
Yeah.
But if we bought here, we could have held longer because
Yeah.
we had that upside to protect.
May buffer na tayo
Yeah, we had a
dun eh.
buffer already from any potential volatility in the market. So yeah, so if you want to trade the cup and handle, try to find an early setup. You don't always have to wait for the breakout.
Yep.
Next one is something we actually see a lot also. It's something we call the head and shoulders pattern. So why a head and shoulders? Well, basically because it one forms a left shoulder, a head, and then a right shoulder, and then you have your neck. So if it breaks the neck, it validates the bearish head and shoulders pattern and will continue to trend downward. So this is PLDT. This was PLDT before. So this is a very common pattern, and there's also a reverse of this. So an inverted head and shoulders, basically you just flip it upside down. You will have the left shoulder here, the head here, and the right shoulder, and then the same neckline. And if it breaks above the neckline, it will trend higher. So that's actually what happened to BPI before it ran up to 149 pesos. It did form a inverted head and shoulders pattern. So you always wanna I guess when considering head and shoulders, don't forget the inverted version of it, the inverted head and shoulders, because it is a bullish pattern and it often works. Okay, the next one and the last chart pattern that we are sharing with you guys is the double bottom and double top. So double bottom is a bullish pattern, and the double top is a bearish pattern. So essentially, an easy way to spot this, if it forms somewhat of a W, as you can see here, like that. So basically, that's a double bottom. You have your first bottom here and your second bottom. Basically, why this is a bullish is because buyers are coming in to support it at this level, preventing it from going lower. And when that happens, sometimes the momentum starts to pick up because support is holding strong, sentiment is improving, and this goes best when the index is starting to rally. So if you're tracking an index stock, for example, and it has shown you a double bottom and the index is starting to recover from the bottom, it's most likely that that stock is going to show some level of outperformance because stocks don't always because the index is just tracking a broad number of stocks, right? And then the opposite of that is a double top. Basically, you have your first top here. Oops. Your first top here, and then your second top over here. So basically, sellers are coming in to prevent the price from going any higher, pushing it down, pushing the stock lower. And so when you see something like this, it's unlikely that the stock will continue to break out if there's such a large amount of sellers. And then when it breaks down, when it starts to retest the support, and then suddenly buyers are not supporting or protecting that level, sellers will win, and then push the stock even lower. So that's what happens in a double top chart pattern. Right. Next, let's have a little game. So we've prepared some charts for everyone. If you recognize the chart pattern, please comment it in the chat box in Zoom, and then yeah, we'll let you
Yeah.
know if you're right or wrong. So
Yeah.
here's the first chart.
Pabilisan, ha?
We'll give you a few
So,
seconds to guess the
what?
pattern.
Go, guys. Uy, ang daming guesses. So, we get...
All right. We already see the right
Yeah, I
answer.
see it too.
Okay, so Noel is right. It's an ascending triangle.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, wait, sorry. Oops. I skipped the one. There. So here is the ascending triangle of Jollibee Food Corporation. As you
Yeah.
can see here, we have that's the
Yeah.
pattern, and it did
Higher
break out.
lows.
Yep. There you go. Okay, the next one. Hopefully you guys didn't see that fast
Yeah.
enough.
Wala kayo nakita.
Although this is a very easy pattern to spot.
Yeah.
Jared, let me know when you found
Yeah.
if when someone has
Wait,
said the
dami
right
na.
answer.
Yep. They chatted it.
What is the answer?
It is the double bottom.
That is correct. See a double bottom of Nickel Asia before its descent back down to 3 pesos.
Yeah.
So here you have your first bottom, your second bottom, your breakout point here, a retest, and then it's uptrend.
Yeah.
There you go. Next. Okay, this is a bit more challenging.
Yeah. It can be
So
multiple
the
answers.
point of this example is to show you that it's not always obvious,
Yeah.
right?
And can be subjective, really.
Yes, it can be subjective. It's not always
Yeah.
perfect, picture perfect, because the market does not care what you think.
Okay.
I think I saw the right answer.
Yes. Hey, it's a one.
What is the right answer, Jared?
It's a cup and handle.
That's correct. It is a cup and handle. So you have your cup here, and then you have your handle right there.
But it can also be an ascending triangle. Right?
Yeah, actually, yeah.
So if you look at that one.
There. So it really depends. It's subjective to the trader. As long as the both patterns are bullish, then it's likely that it will trend higher.
Yeah, I think the important thing to note here is nag-higher low ba siya? And
Yes.
is it
Yeah.
constricting at resistance? Once you see that, basta may higher low coming into resistance, you can, parang your psychology is sinasalo na ng buyers at higher levels towards the breakout point. So once na breakout, you have higher conviction na tutuloy yung stock, right? So you don't really have to memorize the pattern name, but you should just think of higher low ba to towards resistance. If it is, then that's a bullish sign, right?
Yeah.
Then trade the breakout. That's how I view it. Diba?
Right. And then if you look closer, let me go back. You can actually find the setup here, right there. Right? Yeah, that's a setup that you could do if you want to trade the cup and handle at a better risk to reward ratio.
Yeah. And wait, did we mention what stock this is?
Yes. It's Nvidia.
The stock of the year last year.
The AI darling of 2024.
Yeah, that was the stock of the year in the US last year.
All right, next pattern. Very simple also.
Yes. Actually, if talking about the previous pattern.
Okay, let's go back.
The cup and handle. One of the more recent cup and handles in the Philippine market is actually PX.
Oh, okay. This?
There,
it's PX. Here's the chart. Here's the pattern.
Yeah, can you draw the cup and handle? There.
Yeah.
It's not as obvious, diba? But the point is, you won't get a picture perfect chart pattern naman lagi. It's more of understanding, okay, medyo nag-round na yung bottom.
Yeah.
Then you have your higher low, medyo may constriction na. Then you can try to trade the breakout. Or what we do is we try to find the setup before the breakout. Kaya sa strategic growth portfolio, we didn't
wait for the breakout anymore.
We were able to buy what price? 3.2, right?
3.2.
3.2, yeah. We were able to buy it na before the run-up.
We've learned our lesson from CNPF.
Yeah.
Because we wanted to minimize the chances of us being shaken out at the breakout.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes when it breaks out, it can retest and it can shake out people if there's a wick that just sends it lower, right?
Yep. So yeah, the power of the cup and handle, right?
Yeah. Okay, going back, can you guys guess what this chart pattern is? And what stock actually? Anyone with the right answer?
Hmm.
Yes, okay, so Don got it right. Double top of Globe Telecom. That is correct. Yeah, so here obviously you have your first top, your second top, your support area, and then the breakdown here. See, it actually attempted. This is like what, a bear trap, a bull trap, or something, and
Yep.
then it just trended downward.
Parang retest, no,
Retest,
of
yeah,
the breakdown point.
yeah. So there you go. That's a double top example. All right, next one. All right, this
Hmm.
is our second to the last example.
Yeah.
Can you guess the chart pattern and the stock? It's trading at 28 pesos
Yeah.
as of that time. I took a screenshot of this.
I already see the answer.
What is the answer?
It's a descending triangle.
Correct. Of Converge.
Yeah.
When,
Can you draw it so that they can see?
sorry, it's,
So
yeah.
around
Oh,
there.
oh well. All
It's
right.
not perfect, but
It's not
the
perfect, but
thing
it's
is,
there.
yeah,
You can draw it.
lower highs towards support.
There you
So
go.
yeah, that's a
And then
descending
it did
triangle.
break down here. You see the tightening of the upper trend line to the downside because of the lower highs, and
Yep.
then you have it here, and then you have the breakdown.
Yep.
Yep, and then you actually have a double bottom here.
Yeah.
There you go. That's a double bottom too.
But yeah, it's more of like a false breakdown, diba?
Yeah. So actually, this is a good time to point out that the double bottom is not always side by side, right? It's not always at this level. It can form a bit lower.
Pwede
It
mag-overshoot.
can overshoot, but then
Yeah.
that's the thing. That's the tricky part when doing some of these patterns, and only experience and proper risk management can
Yeah.
really help you take advantage of all of these
That's
patterns.
you'll never see a perfect pattern.
I mean, if
It's
you do,
always
that's
messy.
perfect.
Yeah,
You
it's
know, if
always
you do, then
messy.
hit it, right?
Parang yeah.
All right, last example.
Hmm. Ano kaya to?
What is it? All right.
I haven't seen the right answer.
Oh, there. I saw
Oh,
that
there.
there. That's
There.
many people who got the right answer.
Yes.
It is a head and shoulders pattern of ASEN Corporation back in 2022.
Yeah.
So you have your left shoulder, your head, your right shoulder, and then you have your neckline. So also, again, the neckline is not always horizontal. It can actually be a bit, can have sort of an angle like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so here we have the neckline, and then it did eventually break down here.
Yep.
Yep.
But yeah, the psychology of this is basically you have a higher high, diba? Then bigla, you have the first lower
Or high,
high.
yeah.
Then once it breaks the neckline, your support, then you know that's a confirmed downtrend.
Yeah, and you can actually draw a trend line here. There you go. That's the
Yeah.
trend line to the downside.
So that's a channel na, diba?
Yeah.
Trend channel down.
So basically, with all these patterns, you can actually identify multiple in one chart and then draw a bunch of trend lines and support that will help you have a clear picture of where the stock might go, right? So it's a skill learned best by applying it as you go. You can't simply perfect everything before you trade. So the best way to actually master all these patterns and all these trends is to actually experience it for yourself live, right? All right. So that ends our presentation, and now we'll move on to the Q&A. So we have a good amount of time for our Q&A. So Jared, are you ready to answer some questions?
Sure.
All right, first question. Is this correct? The more times a support resistance is tested, the stronger it becomes. About how many retests before the support and resistance is
That
broken?
is not true. The more times you test the level, the weaker it becomes. So if lagi tinetest yung support, likely it's gonna break down. If it keeps testing the resistance, likely it's gonna break out. Right? Do you
I
agree?
mean, yeah, I mean, that's one case. But then also at the same time, it can, for example, RRHI, right?
Yeah.
it retested that, yeah, so actually, yeah, so it retested that support multiple times, and sometimes it does not become strong. It does and end up falling. But there are also instances where it has tested multiple times, but the stock has held for so long. I mean, if you look at, for example, um, PX, if you zoom out on PX or Plus, you can see that the support levels held for so long,
Yeah.
and then eventually it did break out. So it depends, I guess, on it really varies on the stock and the market conditions,
Yeah.
because they all work together in factoring whether or not a support and resistance will
Yeah.
hold.
Parang you have to put the fundamentals together with the technicals. But if you don't know the fundamentals,
But in theory, the more times it's tested,
yeah.
it is stronger. In theory.
For
But
me,
in
I disagree.
reality,
I disagree. For me, in just my opinion, I feel like the more times you test it, the more likely
it will break out.
it's
I mean,
gonna
that's a
break.
fair point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it depends talaga if you know what's going on with the stock and you know it's good and it's at support, even though multiple times na yan, then it's okay, right? But yeah, if for me, based on experience, based on my experience only, right, not Franco's, for me, the more times you test it, the more likely it will break, either to the upside or to the downside.
I guess that's where
Experience na
yeah,
yun eh,
yeah,
right?
it changes. But yeah. All right, next question. For cup and handle, by what percent must the handle be from the rim of the cup before we know it has failed? More than 50%, right? If the handle drops more than
Yeah,
50% of the cup from the rim of the cup to the
yeah.
downside, then it somewhat has
Kung
failed already.
50% na yan, deep pullback na
Yeah, that's
yan.
deep
Hindi
pullback,
yan,
and
hindi na
it's
yan papanalo.
then
Ideally,
not
mga,
50% of the price,
yeah.
50% from the cup's height.
I guess one medyo advanced na to, but what you can do is maybe the Fibonacci, yung mga 23.6, 38 point, whatever. Basta, not, if it goes 50, medyo parang
Yeah,
hindi na.
that's already a sign
Too
that
much na yan.
maybe the cup and handle will not
But yeah, around 25% of the
yeah.
retracement, parang pwede na.
All right. I
That's
hope
a
that
cup and
answers your
handle.
question.
Yeah.
Next, do you use Stock Screener to look for stocks to trade? What parameters are best? And is it available in Dragonfly web platform? So in Dragonfly, we just have the dividend screener. It's best for finding the best dividend stocks using the
Yeah.
payout, the dividend yield, the dividend growth, the ROE, the coverage ratio. Those are all good
Yeah.
parameters that we have that will help you identify the best stock with additional filters like the specific yield or size of the DPS. But personally, Jared, do you use any stock screener to look for stocks to trade?
For me, medyo old school ako. What I do is I chart them all, right? So how many stocks are in the PSE? Around
280.
280.
Around
Then
2 plus, 280 plus now.
the ones that are above 1 million, 5 million value traded, mga 100 plus lang. I just chart them all manually.
Yeah.
I can finish charting it all in like less than 15
We've
minutes.
gotten used to that.
Less than
But
10 minutes.
before, I would use third party screeners to look for stocks that are trending higher. Like for example, RSI above 50 or above the neutral level, RSI above
Yeah.
the 50 a stock trading above the 50-day and 20-day. But now I don't necessarily do
Yeah.
that since I'm like trading here in the Philippines. As time goes on, you just kind of
Wala.
remember the good companies
Yeah,
that
I just eyeball it.
good fundamentals, right? Because there's a limited amount of stocks or companies
Yeah.
here in the Philippines with good fundamentals and good liquidity that
Yeah.
can actually propel the
So
stock
yeah,
higher.
for us, yeah, you can, but
Screeners are good, by the way. We're not
especially if it's in the US, right? Because it's impossible to chart 10,000
stocks.
stocks, right?
Yeah.
But in the Philippines, kayang-kaya all. So that's what I do.
Yeah,
I
so
eyeball it.
what parameters would you suggest, Jared? I guess a trading volume above 5 million, for example, a
Yeah.
RSI above the neutral level for that upside momentum,
Yeah.
above the 20-day or 50-day moving average, for example.
Yes.
Yeah. Those are the more basic and common parameters that you can set when you start looking for stocks in the screener.
Yep.
All right. Next question, Jared, would you like to read this?
Haba ah. Okay, how should we choose the duration of chart? Day chart, weekly,
That's a good
monthly?
question.
Okay, sometimes indicators look bullish in the day chart, but bearish in the, I guess, higher time frames. Yeah, which one is more useful to predict price action? And how does it depend on your trade plan, whether it's for short term? So the answer is by default, we look at the daily chart, right? I use weekly or monthly sometimes when I want to zoom out and then find the key resistances. But for me, by default, what I look for my mga entry triggers, lahat daily. The intraday, I don't look at it na because medyo it's there's a lot of noise in the intraday. So for me, I just focus on the daily. Then if talaga I want to zoom out, then find the key levels faster. Because sometimes the resistance levels mga nasa 2000s pa, 2008, di ba? Parang when you zoom out, medyo sobrang layo na. So sometimes it's better to just use the weekly or monthly. Pero by default, daily talaga. Kasi that's where most people are watching eh, right?
Yeah. For me, yes, it can depend on your trading plan because, for example, if you're a short-term trader or a scalper or a swing trader, you would most likely look at
minutes, 5 minutes,
the
1 minute.
daily for I guess swing. But if you're a scalper, you would look at the hour, minute, or the minute time frame, right? Because it will help you a lot better because price is moving faster for a scalp trader. But I think one good way to approach this, if you want to consider the big picture, is you start from the monthly time frame or weekly. You get the overall trend of a stock, and then you move on to the smaller time frames like the daily and the weekly to plan out your trade. Because, for example, if you in the monthly or weekly chart, it's a channel, a sideways downward or an upward channel, then you can in the daily or hourly chart catch the support and sell it at resistance. So that's also good for trading. But normally I would always default to the daily candle, a daily time frame, and then as similar to Jared, go to the weekly for some significant levels of support and resistance. Yeah. But overall it will greatly depend on your trading strategy and plan because it will some plans will require you to look out at the bigger time frame if especially if you're a long-term trader. It helps to know whether or not the stock's overall trend is trending downward or upward, and if it's trending downward and then you see a breakout in the monthly, then it's a good indication that the stock has reversed. Yep. Okay, next question. Should you always use a daily time interval when using technical analysis? No.
You don't have to if you don't want to, right? So, like what Franco said, if you, example, you're a chupetero, right? Day trader. Usually they're in the 5 minute chart, 1 minute, 3 minutes, right? So, but of course, I think important pa rin yung daily because that will set your bias eh. Like if it's an uptrend on the daily, right? Then the intraday, your bias is it's on an uptrend, right? So I think to some degree, yes, everyone should look at the daily chart, but you don't have to use it when using technical analysis. You can look at the intraday charts and draw your support and resistance, right? So in each time frame, they can have their own parang micro support resistance levels, right?
Yeah.
So there.
All right. I hope that answers your question. Let's go on to the next. What are some usual catalysts that cause a stock to break out of its resistance level? Oh, that's very easy.
Yeah.
One, change in the business model. You have Plus for the perfect example, from physical to online casinos. That greatly changed the amount of revenue they can earn. What else? Miraculous franchise renewal, for example.
Yeah.
A mine of a mining company. What else? Regulation in any industry.
Yes.
For example,
MWC.
MWC.
The water rates, di ba?
Yeah.
Once the MWSS announced na they're gonna increase water rates till 2027, you saw na MWC broke out of resistance na, di ba? So that was the catalyst, right?
Yeah, so you have company-specific catalysts, and then you have the macro level catalysts. For
Yeah.
example, interest rates. So when the BSP was raising rates when inflation was at its hottest, we saw equities weaken because the valuations could not support it anymore, and you saw a steep decline in the index.
Yeah.
Now that we're in a rate cut regime, although at a slower pace,
Yeah.
in theory, property stocks, for example, should have been rising because it means the lower borrowing costs and people have better financing rates to finance their home purchases.
Yeah, and another one I can think of is gold, right?
Oh
Right
yeah,
now,
commodities.
gold is surging to all-time highs, right? So what were the stocks that broke out? APX, OGP, PX, right?
Yeah.
And some of the smaller mining names, right? So yeah, that's a catalyst, right? If the commodity that the company uh sells is increasing in price, then price times quantity, di ba? Do the math, right? Higher earnings, higher revenues. So
So
there,
the best way to do this is to one,
read the news.
read the news, right? And then look at a specific company you want to invest in. Understand what industry it operates in, what it does in that industry, and then identify potential catalysts that can affect the stock. So, for example, if you're looking into a mining stock, obviously you want to take note of regulations, commodity prices, and weather, because weather can actually, if it's the weather is severe, it can actually stop the production of any mine, right? So those are the things you want to be aware of.
Yeah, just think of what are the moving parts of each business, right? So once you see there's a news article that says that moves that moving part, right? Then you know there might be some
For
action in the
example,
stock.
revenge travel back when the pandemic
Yeah.
lockdown lifted, right? That's when a lot of people started to travel again. So that's one catalyst that can actually move Cebu Pacific or PAL higher.
Or macro
Or Macro
Asia.
Asia, exactly. When that happened, Macro Asia rallied.
Yep.
So yeah, those are some of the things you have to keep an eye out, because sometimes it doesn't, like, you don't realize that it's going to affect the stock
Yeah.
until it's too late. So you just
Parang
have to keep note.
you have to keep practicing it. Parang
Yeah.
practicing how to connect the dots, 'di ba? Parang okay, you have this news article. Okay. Parang in your mind, dapat yun mindset mo is, so how does this affect this business? How does it affect this stock? May affect
Yeah.
ba in
Does
the
it
first
affect
place?
anything I'm holding in my portfolio,
Yeah,
right?
if there is and you see that there's an opportunity, maganda technicals, go
Yeah.
hit it, right?
Yeah.
Ganun lang.
All right. That was a great question. Let's go on to the next. If a stock has been consolidating for an extended period, what factors increase the likelihood of a breakout, and how to we are having a bit of a
Okay.
technical
Nawala yung
difficulty.
question.
Okay, we're
There.
back. We're connected again to the internet. So the question is, if a stock has been consolidating for an extended period, what factors increase the likelihood of a breakout, and how to identify whether it will break out upward or break down?
Huh.
Volume. If it breaks out with good volume,
Like
it
PX.
it has a higher chance of being successful.
Yeah.
That's
So,
one.
yeah. I guess it's talaga catalyst,
That
right?
so going back to the same examples that we've mentioned before, plus or PX, the reason why it has broken out is because of a long consolidation. It's because of a specific company catalyst. So that's one of the reasons why a breakout or a breakdown can will succeed. And other than that, it's volume.
Yeah, and there should be parang may tightening up at a higher low. Like what you saw in PX, di ba? Parang may cup and handle, right? Basta there's like an initial surge, di ba? The initial rally, everyone will miss that eh. So there was an initial rally, then once mag-consolidate, medyo parang hindi na siya medyo di na siya nagre-retest sa support eh. Parang stable na siya, right? Then it's constricting. Then you see parang a setup na for the breakout. Before the actual major breakout, you can test buy na there and then add on the confirmation, right? So there.
Next question. Can we submit an order cancels other order outside of trading hours? Yes, you should be able on the web platform. You should be able to
Yes.
submit conditional orders after hours.
Yeah, just make it a GTC order. Good till
But if
cancel.
you're using the mobile app, you cannot. The only conditional order we have is a stop limit order. But you can do that also after trading hours. But if you want to do the more complicated OCO or
Yeah, through
OSO,
the web
you
platform.
have to use the web platform.
And good till canceled order.
Yeah.
GTC.
All right. Next is, what strategies do you suggest for bottom picking?
Very difficult. Very I guess double bottoms. Try to find those if possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess for me, when it comes to bottom
It's
picking,
harder because we got burned in Ali in one of
yeah,
our trade alerts.
yeah,
We thought it was bottoming out already, but no, it just kept
yeah.
continuing.
For me, like if you're gonna bottom pick, the best the best double bottoms are when there's a bit of an overshoot,
Yeah.
right? So parang it breaks down, kala mo break down, and then suddenly it reversed back up. For me, those are usually the best bottom picking trades. But most of them are like bounce play lang eh, parang
Yeah.
that initial rally. But sometimes, very, parang the rare times, usually, sometimes it can lead to the big rally talaga, the huge reversal. But talaga, swertehan na lang yan eh, right?
Yeah.
So, we don't advocate bottom picking,
I mean,
right?
it's hard to do because it's hard to determine when the
Yeah.
market has bottomed
But
out.
if you know something, like there's a turnaround a turnaround brewing, right? And the fundamentals will really improve in the next years to come, right? Then yeah, you can. It depends talaga but you get your conviction from the fundamentals eh. Then once you see it setting up sa technicals, then that's just the added sauce, right? That's the gravy on top na lang.
I would add also that one way to also do this is one, look at the PSEI, check whether or not that it may reverse or it has found a bottom, because
Yeah.
most likely you will start to find bullish chart patterns in all the other stocks, and then from there you can already figure out which strong companies have a better chance of succeeding because um usually what happens is when the index starts to recover, all those stocks that have been consolidating, forming bullish patterns, those are when you can make the most money because that's the start of their bull run. And while the index is just starting there, while the index is starting to recover, those stocks are starting to rally on their own. For
Yeah.
example, Meralco, AP, recently, yeah, I actually briefly talked about this in one of the analysis articles in Dragon in the investing
Yeah.
club. It's
Because
how to trade in a bear market.
yeah, because what do you have guessed na even with the index at 6K right now,
Yeah,
there's still index names at all-time highs like
exactly.
Meralco, right? No, di ba?
Meralco, and then you have Converge showing a good pattern consolidation. And
Yeah.
despite the big sell down, especially during the rebalancing, that stock has held within its range,
Yeah, or
right?
even outside the index, diba? With the PSEI at 6K, would you have guessed now we have a plus that's up 2,000% in the past 2 years, 3 years, right? No,
Yeah.
diba? Crazy.
So yeah, that's one way to do it. All right, next question. How many indicators do you use before going to a trade? What are your favorite indicators?
Try to keep your charts
We don't
clean.
have a lot. I only use the simple moving averages, 20-day, 50-day, 100-day, 200-day, and then I have an RSI, and then sometimes I use MACD. Most of the
Yeah.
time, I rely on most price action.
My favorite is the Bollinger Bands.
Oh yeah, Jared loves the
Yeah, I
Bollinger
love it.
Bands because that's recently that has worked a lot.
Yeah, like,
AUB, China Bank, um,
yeah.
Converge before
Plus,
ICT
before, when
Plus.
we called
That
it
was
at
our trade.
20,
Yeah,
diba?
that was
20.
exactly our trade for Plus.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if you guys follow the investing club, but we actually sent out a trading plan that actually uses that trading strategy on PNB. So
Yeah.
yeah, check it out in the investing club in the Viber group chat or WhatsApp group chat.
Yep.
That's something we'll buy
Yeah.
tomorrow.
But essentially, try to keep your charts clean. Kasi what you wanna avoid is parang linya overload. That's what I
Yeah.
wanna call it. Parang ang dami ng linya sa chart mo. Di mo na alam what to do,
You
right?
start to get confused by
Parang
all these.
may MACD ka na, may RSI, may Bollinger
They
Bands.
can actually just contradict sometimes, and then you
Yeah.
might like hesitate, and then the noise is just going to affect
Yeah.
your ability to trade and manage risk.
Just keep it simple, right? Yung support resistance. Don't forget the support resistance, the trend lines. Kahit yun lang, di ba? Then if you want
Yeah.
added confirmation, added some moving averages, some Bollinger Bands, then one oscillator, either
I think
RSI, MACD.
starting out, the best thing to master is price action. Be familiarize yourself with all the way price moves. So chart patterns, support resistance. That's I think the best way to start. And then you add indicators to help build conviction.
Yep.
All right. Next question. When to stop buying the dip? That's a good question and something that has happened a lot actually.
Yes.
Like for example, from 7K to 6.5, 6.7, and 6.5, and 6.4, then six. When do you stop buying the
Yeah.
dip, right?
You need to know the fundamentals talaga.
Yeah,
Because if you see that there's really a mispricing, then shouldn't you be happy that it's still dipping, right? Because you can get in cheaper for a longer time, right? So it depends talaga sa conviction,
yeah. Ask
sa
yourself, are you
fundamentals.
a short-term trader or long-term investor? If you're a long-term investor, you can buy the dip if your thesis still holds up and that the company is still fundamentally strong. If fundamentals start to be impaired, then long-term you might want to stop buying the dip.
Yeah.
In short term, obviously, you can't always buy the dip because you're a short term investor or trader. You need to properly allocate capital. So you
Yep.
can't always keep buying the dip and
Yeah.
hold because that will turn you from a short term trader to a long term investor.
Yeah. But that's what I always want to say. The conviction has to come from the fundamentals. Talaga. Your technicals, I guess that's your end reason,
Yeah.
right? But the reasoning behind your confidence in that stock, talaga, it has to come from the research, the fundamentals.
Yes.
So there.
Yeah. Next question. I'm a bit confused sa day candlestick. For example, the market closes at 3 pesos, but sometimes the market opens at 4 or 2 pesos, higher or lower. Bakit minsan hindi parehas yung open price from yesterday's closing price?
Okay, okay, because sometimes the price gaps up eh. So example, the previous day the stock closed at 3 pesos, okay? Then somehow parang it will gap up to 5 pesos. Then it will close at 4 pesos. The candlestick will look like a red candlestick, but the stock price still went up. Why? Because it gapped up big eh, and then it faded to a lower price. But it's still higher than the previous day. So kaya siya red. It's only red because the close is lower than the open, but it's still higher than the previous day. Gets ba? Yeah, right? Is that how it is?
Basically, the opening price doesn't have. I mean, it
Just
can.
because it's red doesn't
Yeah,
mean the stock price went down. It just means that the close is lower than the open,
yeah.
right?
So it
So
can. So for example, this is the candle, right? Then it opens here, but then it closes here. So this one is obviously going to be a red candlestick
yeah,
because the close is lower than the open. Yeah.
yes. So there.
All right. I think we're moving on to the last question. Will Dragonfly offer advanced technical analysis after this course? Yes. So first we'll have part two, and then eventually we'll have a more advanced technical
Yeah.
analysis course, a webinar. So this will dive more into using technical indicators
Yes.
and creating like one of the good setups using indicators and figuring out what each of these indicators are telling you and why are they telling you these things.
Yes, yung mga trade setups for earlier entries, right? You
And
don't,
we'll tell you about the Bollinger Band, Jared's favorite
yeah,
indicator,
my favorite yan.
yeah,
Grabe.
and how to properly use it. Yeah. So stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, we do have part two, which will flash
Yeah,
later on if you want to register.
yeah. So what's important is you need to know the foundations first. Once you master the foundations, only then can you go to the advanced, right? Because
Yes.
if we give it all to you guys,
Info overload.
yeah, your brain will just
Like
explode.
personally, when we started, we didn't learn everything at one go. We
Yeah.
gradually had to learn everything because
Yep.
you will forget
Yep.
what you learned if you do everything in one go. So okay,
Take your time.
yeah.
Baby steps.
So thank you everyone for that amazing questions. We hope we answered your questions properly and learned a lot from us. We hope you enjoyed. And now please scan this feedback form in order for a chance to win our Dragonfly tote bag and cap. So we'll give you guys a few minutes to answer this, 3 minutes to answer this, and then we will announce the winners.
Yes.
All right.
Yep.
So PNB tomorrow, huh, Jared? We're gonna buy
Yep.
that stock, huh?
Yeah.
So why do you like PNB based on the technicals? What can you say about the technicals?
Uh, what can I say about the technicals? You'll find out if you subscribe to the Dragonfly Investing Club.
No, but basically, it has a tightening in the Bollinger Band similar to what it has done for China Bank and AUB. So and plus, so based on that,
Yeah. So
that's
it's a setup
it's the
talaga.
setup that we're
Yeah.
trying to test again. So what are your key takeaways from this webinar, Jared?
I guess it's great to have a refresher on the
Right?
basics,
Yeah.
right?
Especially the chart patterns. Oh, it's
Yeah,
always nice to revisit all these different chart patterns because sometimes you don't. I like personally, I barely look for the ascending and descending triangles.
yeah. Parang for me, I just look at higher low ba to,
Yeah,
higher
right.
high,
So
di ba?
sometimes it's good to remember that these patterns exist and
Yeah,
they will help you.
yep. So just going back to the basics talaga.
Never forget the basics.
Yeah.
Yeah. All
Mhm.
right. I hope you guys had a great time
Yeah.
and
Give
we
us,
will announce the winner shortly.
give us some good feedback.
No, be very harsh.
Yes. Be honest.
Oh, shout out to Tita Glow also for joining the webinar today.
Hi, Tita
She
Glo.
she is the person behind the Money Wise engineer. So check out her YouTube channel and her signature portfolio. Actually, you can copy her dividend investing portfolio, which I think is doing fairly well because
Yeah.
of her picks. Her picks are very good.
Yes. Mhm. Mm.
And speaking of which, we actually have a webinar coming up that will involve Tita Glo of MoneyWise Engineer and Sir John Carl Lim, the CEO of Dragonfly. So what this webinar will do is they will discuss the strategy behind the MoneyWise Engineer's investing strategy.
Yes.
We'll flash the screen later.
Yeah. And
All right, I think we have the winners. Jared, can you please announce the winners of our free tote bag and cap?
I guess drum roll, please.
Oh, okay, there you
No,
go.
it's enough.
All right.
So, congratulations to Paul Manalo, Aspen Alonsabe, and Keith Monsanto.
Yeah, so kindly message our Facebook page to claim your prize at facebook.com/dragonflyhq. And please follow our Facebook page and TikTok and YouTube channel. Okay,
Yes.
so the next technical analysis webinar we have is on Feb 26. Next week, it's part two. It will talk about how to execute trades. We will discuss some strategies here, how to craft the proper trade plan, how to position size yourself, and the common trading mistakes that people make when they start trading
Yep.
or investing.
So, I guess one level higher, a notch
Yeah,
higher.
just
So, a
one
bit
more
more
level higher.
advanced.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This will involve math, so prepare yourself.
Yeah. Eh,
Yeah. Okay. I hope you guys managed to take a screenshot. We'll be moving to the next slide. So the next slide is the passive income made simple webinar. So basically here we will be talking about the strategy behind the MoneyWise engineer's portfolio. You will learn exactly what type of company she looks at, what type of fundamentals she likes to spot, what factors what factors go into her trading plan, and basically you will learn a lot on why you should be copying her dividend investing portfolio. Yeah. And if you want to copy her already, you can go onto the mobile app and go to the signature portfolios, and you can find her portfolio and the other influencers like Investing PH, Stockslug, and Kuya John. Okay, and lastly, here are our socials. Please don't forget to follow us at Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube.